right, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. This is our last session of the day, and I am thrilled that you are here. I'm thrilled that you've chosen to be in this room because and I know I've said this a lot, but I am especially excited about about this session. I've gotten to talk to Michael quite a bit, and maybe it's because our ideas align on a lot of things, but we have similar perspectives and wanting to help y'all do what you do even better than you were before. So Michael Vasicek is here. He's going to talk about AI's impact to the operating model, not just at an organizational level, but also what that means to you as professionals working as work changes with AI. So thank you for being here. And thank you, Michael. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you sticking around for the last session here. The first couple of slides, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about why I have the presentation in the way that it's set up. But as I go through this presentation, what I'd like you to do is think through what I'm saying and what you see on the screen here in three different ways. I want you to think through how this affects you in your personal life. What are things that you can do in your personal life because of AI and some of the things that I'll talk about. I want you to think about how it affects you specifically in your role, in your job, what you do. And then lastly, I want you to think about what is your company doing and what could you do to help your company because of the incoming changes to operating models everywhere. Before I do get started, can I do a really quick show of hands just so I can get a sense of where people are at in the room? Who uses Gen AI quite regularly? Perfect, okay. Who uses Agentic AI quite regularly? Okay, and then last question, who has built an AI agent? Very good, okay. All right, so that's about the normal response that I get, and something for those that have not built AI agents or do not interact with them regularly, I'll give you one quick statistic to think about. 26% of organizations today are doing anything with Agentic AI. That's it. And I'm talking about the big organizations, right? The Fortune 1000 or so. So there's still a lot of companies that haven't started. And that's the essence of this presentation is it's time to get started personally, professionally, and as organizations. So quick introduction. As mentioned, I'm Michael Vasicek. This is my LinkedIn if you do want to connect. A little bit about me. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan, if anyone's ever heard of that. It's, as I say, it's the halfway point between Detroit and Chicago. And just a little bit about the company that I'm with. I've spent the past 20 years being a consultant, and I've mostly spent that time at Salesforce, Accenture, and Kyndryl, an IBM spinoff. I'm recently made the change to go to Airo Labs AI. It's an AI lab. And I made that change because it's still a consulting firm. It can still help you with any of the consulting needs that you may have at your organizations, but they specialize in AI. And even more so, what excited me about this consulting company is that they deliver AI with AI. So all of us at the organization are using AI in all parts of our job. And that, I think, is the essence of what inspired me to do this presentation originally and inspired me to make the change and hopefully inspires you to look into some things post this presentation. So just a little bit about the company. I'm sure you've heard a lot about Agentic AI, Gen AI, all of those things throughout the course of this conference and any of the others that you've been to. You hear about it certainly whenever you watch the news. You hear about it when you open LinkedIn or many of the other social medias. This is obviously a data conference, and all of the data is what supports the outcomes that we see with AI. And so that's why it's incredibly important. But this market is growing extremely rapidly. And so that's why we're hearing so much about it today. As I go through this presentation, what I'm going to cover is a little bit about a story that why the operating model is changing and what it's going to look like. But I'm also going to try and give you different data points, different things that you should study yourself, understand for your teams, for your organizations. But again, going back to my intro, I'd like you to consider some of the things that you can do, again, in your personal life. What can I do to help me manage my time better, my finances better, my schedule better, all of these sorts of things. So this slide right here is meant to be a level setting slide. We have a number of folks in the room that are certainly quite familiar already with Agentic AI. But I'll tell you, I regularly meet with CIOs that cannot explain the difference between Gen AI and Agentic AI. And that's what they're responsible for. So I like this example because this is a true story. This is something that I had happen to me that I ended up using both of these as time went by. So the quick story was, it was end of the week. I knew something was supposed to be on my calendar to remind me to do something important that week. And I get to the end of the week and I had a bit of a panic because I realized I never got reminded to do this important thing. And so I pulled up my calendar, and sure enough, it was on my calendar on Monday, but it didn't have a reminder on it. It didn't have that pop-up that says, 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever until this reminder on your calendar. And thankfully, my brain made me look for this. But it made me go, I wonder how many other things that I've missed on my calendar because there wasn't a pop-up. Pre-Gen AI, I would have had to manually look through all of that. It would have taken incredible amounts of time. With Gen AI, you have this gigantic leap forward where you can simply say, search my calendar, find everything that doesn't have a reminder, and give me a report of those things so I can go fix them. That's a huge time saver, huge value add. But then you take yet another giant leap forward to Agentic AI, and instead of you asking for a report where you have to go then manually update those, you simply say, go look at my calendar, and anything that doesn't have a reminder, add one. Right? So I like that very, very simple explanation between the two. And again, when I'm meeting with a number of senior folks in organizations, they just don't quite understand the difference between the two yet. And an example like this helps them. So again, this is a perfect example that you can share with family, friends, colleagues that really helps emphasize the difference between the two. This slide, please feel free to take a photo of. I did also upload my slides, so hopefully if you guys watch the recording or grab the slides, you can get the actual slide itself. I'm also happy to send them to you. I did leave some business cards in the back of the room as well if you want to email me, and I can send you a copy of this. This is 7 of the over 2,000 different agents that we've deployed. And I chose these 7 specifically for 2 reasons. One, they're agnostic to any industry. But 2, almost all of these, even people that don't have jobs like we have, can understand and relate to these. So I'm going to go through 2 of these quite quickly, just to give you an idea of what the agentic solution was. As I explain these, I'd love for you to think just to yourself, is my organization doing this? If not, well, it's very easy and not expensive to do. And then also, okay, well, that's a really simple, cool concept that certainly saves time and money. What other things could I think of personally that my organization could do? So the first one that I'm going to give the example of is number 3 on this list. In this case, what you do is you take any sort of contract. Almost any big company has master contracts, MSAs, SOWs, statements of work, NDAs, the list goes on, right? Employment contracts. So take a certain type of contract and put it into a SharePoint folder. That then essentially becomes your small language model, because what you're saying is anything that goes into this SharePoint folder, in this specific example, is my gold standard. These are the ones that I want to be what all of my contracts should be. And in this case, instead of the legal team spending hours reviewing the contract and redlining it with all of these different things that they just natively know, or using reference models to make sure they're hitting everything on the checklist, you feed a new contract into the AI tool, and it uses that reference folder to automatically redline the contract based on your already approved contracts. Huge time saver. So something that would have taken a couple of hours now takes maybe 10 minutes for the legal team to review. I don't know about you guys. The legal teams that I often interact with, You say, hey, I've got this new contract, can you review it? And they're like, sure, we're 2 to 10 weeks backlogged, but absolutely. Use case like this, huge time saver, helps solve a problem like that, helps save a lot of time and energy within the organization. The second one that I want to talk through briefly is number 6. In this specific example, if your organization has a call center, this would be very applicable, but I think everybody can relate to what I'm about to say. So in this specific example, we did this for a utility company. And I don't know about you, if you ever have to call your utility company, it's not a fun experience. But ideally, you get a hold of somebody that can understand what you're calling about and can help you resolve whatever you're calling about. What this utility company wanted to do was have the AI listening to the call. So a transcription service was part of this, right? And in listening to it, as it's listening to what the customer is calling to complain or has an issue with, the AI is then pulling up the correct service guide for the agent that's on the phone and says, this is the guide that you need to help resolve the problem. So that helps save time, helps save energy, helps resolve the issues faster. But that's not the only thing the agent did. At the end of the call, the agent would then summarize the discussion that was just had. It would document what the outcome was, what was done to resolve the issue, and it would send an email to the person that called in and say, you spoke to this person today, this is what you discussed, this is what was resolved or not resolved, this is a job aid. Should this ever occur for you again in the future, you have this, but you're always welcome to call again. And that increased customer satisfaction quite significantly, right? So in a later slide, I'm going to show you a number of different things that you can consider when we talk about value. Data obviously has an immense level of value, but there's a lot of other things too that have value, and I'm going to emphasize the fact that by implementing an AI agent in your organization, the value doesn't have to be dollar-based. It doesn't have to be how much money it saves the organization. That's an important one. That's certainly one we'll talk about. But in the case here, increasing customer satisfaction was one of the leadership's goals and is one of the things that this AI agent helped achieve that goal. Next, I want to highlight this. There's a lot on this screen. The intent of everything here is just to showcase how different AI governance is from normal project governance or normal, if you have change advisory boards or something of the sort within your organization. Cybersecurity is immensely involved, but so is data governance, so is leadership. All of these things are what you would basically be setting up in terms of a term that we call an AI framework. If your organization does not have an AI framework today, that's step 1. Before anything else, you can do that in parallel to putting an AI policy in place, but that is absolutely step 1. If you do not have an AI framework, very, very bad things can happen. They can cost your organization a lot of money. They can cost people jobs. They can lose out on IP and so on and so on. And it's because of everything listed here on the screen. So when you think about AI governance, it's really how do you protect the company? How do you protect the people? How do you protect the IP? But it's also safety, right? So just a couple weeks ago, I was presenting at a conference for paper mills. And perfect example of one of the concerns that they have is if something goes wrong in a paper mill, there's an explosion and people can die, right? So when you've got AI systems that are being implemented in high impact manufacturing type organizations and other organizations that have a human risk to them, the framework also covers safety, not just AI safety, but human safety. So these are things that you need to ensure are included in the framework. Well, if your company doesn't have a framework today, they're not incredibly difficult to set up. All consulting companies do them, the big ones, the small ones, they're quite easy. All the hyperscalers have reference frameworks as well. So regardless of what hyperscaler your organization uses, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, it doesn't matter. In building that, you also don't have to solve for everything in rolling out your first AI agent. Your framework needs to address whatever your agents may do. So you can start small, especially if you're only starting with a couple of agents. If your organization does not have agents today, by the end of this year, they need to have dozens to maybe a couple of hundred. If your organization does have agents today, by the end of this year, you need to have thousands. They are easy to create, but you have to have the proper guardrails in place. All right, so now I'm going to shift to kind of the title of what this presentation is, which is addressing the operating model. And in doing that, I'm going to give a brief story of a significant change that the humankind has experienced in the past. And I specifically chose an example that is something that no one here was alive to be part of, because what I found is when folks give examples like the dot-com boom or some of the ones that are more recent, smartphones and so on, people like to chip away at specific things about that. Well, what about this? Did you consider that? So I'm going to give the example of the car here in a minute. But I want to emphasize there was a podcast that made this comment and how true this comment is. When a major change happens to the economy, we don't see all of the new jobs created right away because new jobs continue to trickle on and on. But we see many of them created before the old ones go away. So I want to emphasize that through the story. So speaking of the car here, when the car first came out, you had people, literally their job was to clean up horse poop off the road. Lots of people had this job. Every town had several people that had this job. The car comes out and they're like, I'm not worried about this at all. You know, people are afraid of the car. They're afraid of, what if the engine explodes? They're afraid of what if it doesn't do what I need and it drives off a cliff? All kinds of concerns related to the car, right? Fast forward, now you're in the early 1910 timeframe, and you've got 30 to 40% of people are starting to use cars. It's fairly common, but it is still more common for you to see people riding horseback or the horse-drawn carriage. And then the mass production happens, right? The assembly line. And that makes it far cheaper, far easier to get cars. So you fast forward another decade and you don't see horses on the road anymore, right? So all of those people that's job was to clean up horse poop off the road, they're all out of a job. What do? Well, that's kind of the moment we're in right now as it pertains to AI. And so that's what I want all of you thinking about is, what do I do? What do my teams do? What do my friends and family and children do? All of those jobs on the left-hand side of the screen, they essentially vanished, right? I mean, these were very, very common jobs that you could find everywhere. Well, now you can only find some of them at places that, you go to race horses or ride horses. A lot of these just don't exist at all anymore. So huge job losses, right? And that's what we keep hearing about from a lot of the people that especially seemingly go on podcasts and news. Huge job losses to come, right? No. Every time we've seen a significant disruption to jobs, there's been more jobs created than there were lost. So I want you to not necessarily read through this list, but I want you to think through a few things. When we talk about AI jobs being created today, if you have roles in your company where the letters AI were added to that role, that's an AI job now, right? AI engineers. But there are also brand new jobs that have been created as part of it. Prompt engineers, as an example, and many, many more will continue. There's also jobs that just fundamentally won't go away. If you think something like auditors, right? Even when we get to a level where we truly trust AI, we will still have human auditors to make sure that things are happening the way humanity's goals are set up. So yes, there's going to be massive disruption. If you look at a number of the tech companies, they've already done fairly significant layoffs, and many of them have blamed those layoffs on AI. But in reality, if you look into what those layoffs were and what they meant. It was those organizations essentially either cutting fluff, excess roles that weren't needed based on what the company was trying to do, or it was because the organization is making a pivot in what their core mission or M&A or something of the sorts. So what does this mean for all of you and all of the other people that I mentioned? The operating model is going to change. And so everybody here and everybody that's ever been in working in a career is familiar with the operating model on the left. Humans report to humans, all the way up to the CEO. If you listen to some of the hype, you've heard the two options on the right-hand side of the screen. You've heard the scenario where, people won't have jobs anymore. It'll be AI reporting to AI, and it'll be a one-person company. There is a rumor that there is the world's first billion-dollar valued company that only has one employee, a startup company. I don't know a lot about it, but the rumor is that they have that valuation. So that already exists. But this isn't the companies that you all know. This isn't the Target, the Walgreens, the Coca-Cola, these big companies. It will never be AI agents all the way up to one person. But nor will it be the next one over. You won't have this miss and match of an AI reports to a human who reports to an AI and all of that. It will not be that because it won't work. There's a really good example. I'm terrible at explaining it, so forgive me. But there's a really good example of why that won't work when they talked about the very, very early days of implementing computers and spreadsheets to handle finances. So in the example that they're talking about, they say, well, when you implement a spreadsheet to handle all of your organization's finances, if you really liked Betsy, thought she did a great job, would you have your Excel spreadsheet not actually do what you needed it to in cell B7 because you really liked Betsy? No, that wouldn't make sense, right? And it would cause all kinds of other complications with the mathematics happening in your Excel spreadsheet. So that's why that won't work. So what will the operating model be? It will be fewer levels, and every single person will interact with AI agents. This is guaranteed. And it's happening already in tech companies, and it will continue through the rest of this year as we go into next year, start happening to every other type of company and industry out there. Some sorts of industries will move slower, some will move faster, but this is what's coming. So why does this matter to you? Because you all need to become familiar with AI agents. You don't need to be familiar at a technical level. You also don't need to be familiar with how to build all kinds of different fancy agents, but you do need to understand what is an AI agent. You do need to understand how they work fundamentally, because you on a daily basis, a year or two from now, will be told every day when you log into your computer what to do by an AI agent, and you'll also be responsible for telling the AI agents what to do. And that's because there will be not hundreds, but thousands or tens of thousands of AI agents working in your company, because they'll all be doing very specialized things. And that's why you as a human will still have a job, but you'll need to be interacting with them, right? You'll be giving them different tasks. You'll be having them go run and do different things. But you'll also be responsible for making sure that they're giving correct outputs, right? So if you start seeing an agent that is not doing something correctly, it's not calculating 1 + 1 = 2. That's going to be your responsibility as the individual responsible for managing those agents to make sure that that is corrected. Has anyone heard of the example of the car wash interaction with AI? Okay, so if you ask AI today, there's a car wash 2 blocks away from me. Should I walk or drive to the car wash? It'll always tell you should walk because it's only 2 blocks away, which makes no sense at all. If you're going to a car wash, why would you walk, right? So there's fundamental aspects of AI. Models continue to improve very rapidly, but there's fundamental aspects of AI where they just don't have context yet, right? The data's there, but they're lacking context. There's another rule that I would like all of you to walk away from here thinking. It's what we in consulting call the 12-week rule right now for AI. Every 12 weeks, one of the big AI companies, LLM companies, chip companies, comes out with a significant step forward in something related to AI, the way the data is processed, the way it thinks, the way it produces outputs, something significant, not small, significant, happens every 12 weeks. So why does that matter? If you have implementations happening at your organization that take over 12 weeks, your company will not get the value that it needs to out of that implementation. They have to be fast. They have to be production ready, not POCs. They have to have specific problems that they're solving. So as you think about your roles, I want you to think about what are things that are very specific that I could solve this problem with an AI agent. Finally, wrapping up with the operating model concept. I like this image because it shows you basically at the very beginning of the session when I asked, I think there was 4 people that had built AI agents themselves, right? So hopefully everybody's using AI at some aspect of their job today. A lot of companies are doing POCs. A lot of them aren't necessarily seeing a lot of value out of those POCs, often because they're not moving quick enough. Some companies, 26% of companies, have built AI agents within their organization. Very, very few of them have really, truly scaled them. I'll tell you, the one organization, it's not really a company, the one organization that has and has successfully deployed more AI agents than any other one that I know of is the government of Saudi Arabia. They have almost 3,000 agents live today running the government, helping process contracts, permits, fees, everything faster. They have scaled properly. And then the very far right door, how many organizations have then, because of these changes, adjusted their operating model so that it works for AI, so that it works for the people? Almost none. This slide is quite busy. I'm only going to say 3 things about this slide. You're welcome to take a picture of it as well, as I said, for all of them. The 3 things that I want to highlight from this slide. The first one is go big and go bold. The 20x or nothing. That's kind of the going in approach that when I'm meeting with folks from especially C-suites, CFOs, CIOs, CTOs, CDOs, it's go bold. Let's do a implementation that has a really cool, really massive impact for your organization. And let's go then do a bunch more use cases that have all kinds of varying levels of impact for your people. But let's do something bold. The second one is the one at the top in the middle. There is something which I'll talk about here in a minute called agentic drift, if you're not already familiar. It's essentially the problem with ghost agents or agents that have been deployed and then nobody's managing them. Nobody's validating the outputs of these agents. And per Gartner, that is becoming a massive, massive problem. And the third thing I want to highlight is the middle left side, the pilots. If your company is talking about, we should do some AI POCs, okay. But for the past year, organizations have been doing AI POCs, and what's happening is they're not getting them to production fast enough, and so they're not getting the value that they'd hoped from those POCs. Stop with the POCs. Build something that's production ready. Test it, of course. Get human eyes and hands on it. Make sure it's working. But get something in production so that you can start receiving the value that you're meant to from it. To wrap up, there's a slide I've got coming up, and I'm going to kind of sandwich that slide that is what I call like my money slide or my most important slide. I'm going to sandwich that with 2 quotes. So my going in quote is, it's the people that are willing to change, are open to change, that are going to be successful throughout this wave of AI that we have going on right now. So what can you personally do? You can be part of the change. Because right now, like I said, 26% of organizations have done something with Agentic AI. Something could mean they have one person building AI agents. So we are far from mature right now. Be part of the change. Be someone at your organization that is interested and knowledgeable of what's happening, what's out there. Be someone who's curious and wants to play with the AI tools. Be someone who wants to build AI agents in the sandbox. An AI agent, a general one, takes 5 minutes to build. Okay? When we talk about job losses, when we talk about the headcount reductions that are happening, the organizations that are looking at that are really focused on the two right columns of the adoption curve. And this adoption curve is not specific to AI. This is just the general adoption curve for any time an organization implements any sort of change. The people that are the late majority, they're gonna be in a world of hurt. The people that are the laggards, they're going to be unemployed for a while, right? So don't let yourself, don't let your friends, your colleagues fall into those categories. The people that say, I don't like AI, I don't trust AI, I don't like what it's doing to the environment, I don't like what it's doing to jobs. I hear you, I agree, but we're not stopping this snowball, it's rolling. So I want you guys to keep your jobs. I want you guys to be successful. And I think that there's plenty of people that you have in your lives that you'd like the same. So keep that in mind. Here's my money slide for you guys. Everything on the left is basically common knowledge for people that are involved with AI today. Everything on the right is new and coming or still in labs being ideated. I'm not going to go through everything on the left again because it's fairly common out there. If you just ask AI about it or Google it, you'll certainly find plenty of information. I am going to highlight one thing on the left, though, that I still regularly run into people that are again familiar with AI but struggle with the difference between them, and that is human in the loop versus human on the loop. Human in the loop is absolutely critical right now. Until you trust your AI, until you trust the data that's being supplied to the AI, until you have the proper framework in place to govern the AI, you want human in the loop, right? So that means that the AI goes and does something, but instead of it clicking submit or whatever at the end, it requires a human does that, right? So that's perfect safety protocol. Human on the loop is what companies really need to very quickly be advancing to. And that is the AI goes and does it. If it's a regular thing that's occurring that it sees all the time, get the human out of the loop. The human's just slowing it down. Human on the loop means only involve a human when there's some sort of anomaly, right? Something is different about this one. So that's the one to take a look at. Okay. Now, jumping to the right side. Again, you could ask AI. AI should be able to fairly well explain some of the concepts on the right because enough people have written blogs or talked about them, or some of the big organizations have started to release some information on them. I'm going to run through them quickly so that you get a sense of what they are. I'm going to try and keep it at a very general level for each. So just going through them each. The very first is the JEPA framework. Today, when you interact with AI, the output, basically what's happening is it's the AI LLMs are trying to guess whatever the next word should be for that output. And so it looks backwards, but it's just always guessing the next word. The JEPA framework says, stop trying to guess what the next word is. Try to understand the context of what you're producing an output for, and then produce the whole output based on the context that you believe you understand it to be. Okay? So that's going to fundamentally change the way that we get output. However, it is still a predictive output, right? So there's still that probability that goes into it. It doesn't mean two people will always get the same answer. Second is SRAM. This, the way I like to easily think about it is when you talk to AI and you start a new session, Gen AI, and you start a new session, it doesn't remember necessarily most of the things from your other sessions. Some of the models are now starting to remember certain things, and that's essentially what SRAM does. Is it says things that are fundamental or things that are something a human might write on a sticky note and put on their desk as they're starting to learn. That's what this sort of memory does for the AI. It helps it so that as you have additional conversations, it remembers key and core things. Third is C2PA. This one I'm particularly excited about. One of the reasons I'm really excited about it is because I think it's incredibly embarrassing when you see members of Congress putting up pictures or quotes and things that they think are factual that were actually created by AI. Now extrapolate that across organizations and in friend groups and stuff. There's a lot of things out there that people don't know whether or not they're real. C2PA is basically a way that says, without a human able to edit it, it says this was created by AI or this was created by human. And then when it is transferred and somebody marks it up, it then adds an additional line that says this was created by a human, edited by AI, or vice versa. Next is policy as code. This is one I hope every one of your companies does. And if this is something that you don't know if your company has done, great thing for you to take to your leadership. Policy as code is, as simply put as possible, your AI needs to follow the same policies your humans do. Why wouldn't it? I think it's common sense. It's great for the company. It prevents AI from doing things that are out of policy. Agent sprawl and agent swarms are some terms that it's, again, good to know what they are and what they mean. So one is basically agents kind of acting on their own and going crazy. Another one is agents kind of acting like an ant colony. And in that case, basically what's happening is, you drop a Dorito on the ground and a bunch of ants find that Dorito and they take it back to the ant colony. No one person told them, no one ant told them to do that. They just acted as a group, right? So that's the swarm. Edge AI is, I hope, coming sooner rather than later. This is where instead of you having to call on an AI LLM out there in the abyss, up in the cloud, it'll be on a camera, it'll be on a phone, it will be on the laptop, it will be on a wearable device or glasses or whatever. The thing that's exciting about Edge AI is it'll make everything go a lot faster, and it'll make things like data centers in space be able to communicate with devices on Earth a lot faster as well. So that will increase productivity, and that will make it so that different sorts of sites, especially large manufacturing types of sites, can implement AI all throughout their sites as well. Has anybody heard of ambient AI? Okay, that's because it's not here yet, but that's what happens next, right? So we had Gen AI, now we've got Agentic AI. Next is ambient AI, and then comes artificial general intelligence. So ambient AI is living and breathing in your systems. It's acting as task doers across your ecosystem, and it finds something that needs to be done, but nobody has to tell it to do it. Right? So it finds a problem and it goes and corrects that problem. It lets you know that it corrected it, but nobody had to say, oh, I found this problem, or the data shows that there's something wrong here. It just finds it and does it, right? So there's rumors that there's some models out there that can do that. They're not being released. And I'm not talking about like Mythos. I'm talking about other models out there that can do this sort of thing. But because humans generally just don't trust AI enough, we're not close enough to releasing ambient AI type models. I think that's a good thing. And then the last one here is agentic drift. And so this is something that, again, I think should bring a level of comfort to everyone that human jobs aren't just going to go away. Agentic drift means you've deployed an AI agent to go do something. You got to manage it, right? Leadership changes, goals change, M&A happens, new data comes, new tools come, new APIs are set up. All kinds of different things happen every day in organizations. And that can mean that the original prompt, the original build of that AI agent that you put in place is no longer doing what it really truly should or what the new organization's vision is for it. So you need to have people managing those agents, because if you don't, they drift away from their original purpose and goals. So to wrap up here, I said I would give you one slide as well with things to consider for value. Value is, of course, a dollar sign, sure. It is also customer satisfaction. It is also reducing headcount turnover. It is also all kinds of things. And this list, I would love for you, when you're thinking through ideas for AI agents in your company, in your personal life, what value can my agent help with? Because again, you don't always have to try and figure out the dollar value piece of it. And I did separate, as you can see on the far right, there's the personal life aspect. I haven't come up with a ton of use cases for AI agents in my personal life. I have certainly used them before. One example is I had an AI agent book a car cleaning service for me. I said, go find a car cleaning service in my town where they'll come to you and schedule it for next week. I don't care when, as long as it's under, I don't remember what number I gave, $150 or something, just go book it. And it did. And so that was helpful. That wasn't a reoccurring agent, that was a one-time use. But there are definitely things that can help you in your personal life, and so I wanted to highlight that as well. To wrap, here's my other sandwich side of the quote. You'll never feel ready because it's not a feeling, it's a decision. The intent of this presentation was to make you feel like there are things that you can go out and learn today about AI. More importantly, there are things that you can think about in your personal life and your professional life where AI could help you. Because this is a snowball that none of us are stopping. So let's ride the wave so that we can be successful as part of this wave. Thank you very much for your time. Again, there's my LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. I certainly appreciate your time and attending here today. I don't know if we have any time for questions, but I'm happy to if we do. Okay, perfect. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
So you have demonstrated earlier that some companies may be behind in the next 6 months if they don't do
Yep.
AI implementation. Are you saying that we should dive right into it? Even there are some organizations that does have reservation in terms of security.
Yeah, so number one is the framework, right? So I absolutely understand the security reservations on, again, personal security as well as like IP security, data security, all of these things. PII of data, client data, patient data, all of these things are critically important. You put the proper framework in place, it will protect those things. Now, I also understand that there's a level of mistrust that people still have for AI, and that's going to take a while for AI to truly resolve, right? I think the car wash example is one of many different ones. Another one that I've heard is if you ask AI to time a run for you, I'm going to go for a run, time it. And then 10 seconds later you say, all right, how far did I go and how long did it take? It makes up an answer. I mean, you asked it 10 seconds later and it'll be like, oh, you ran 2.8 miles and it took you 11 minutes. So yeah, there's a ways to go with trust. But it's really good at a lot of technical things already. It's really good at the examples that I shared earlier, like the customer service, the transcription, the legal contract reviews. There's a lot of things where you can truly get value today. And so what I'm saying by that 6-month timeline is if your organization doesn't act, but your competitors do, your organization is going to suffer because you are going to be that much further behind. And so what we're going to see is the organizations that don't act quickly in this are going to lose market share, they're going to lose revenue, they're going to lose their people because their people want to work at organizations that are doing the cool, new, exciting things. They're going to lose opportunities for innovation and so on and so on. So that's the point of act quickly, understanding reservations, but do it in a safe manner by having a framework and do it in places where you can trust the output.